The Concordat already binds blocks not by declaration but by material exchange. Temporary patches no longer hold the flows, and each new trading day sounds like a political durability test. Economic headquarters shape mutual branch models, lawyers build jurisdiction and personnel protection, engineers align infrastructure standards, trust rests on operational discipline, not promises. The phase of mutual presence begins. Two systems learn to live inside shared institutional space with unified rules of responsibility, transparency, and scheduled response to failure. Small hall of the Economic Council. On the screen is the diagram left arrow Mirrodin, forms of presence. Outside the council doors stretches an administrative floor, couriers with licenses, translators at terminals, a quiet queue of company representatives. The branches already cast an urban shadow. Even before signatures, they look less like flags than future addresses, passes, and work shifts.
Trade is a flow. Branches are presence. Are you ready for a permanent presence in our jurisdiction?
Minister Mira looks away from the trade flow chart to the permanent branch schematic on the Economic Council table. The question about presence in their jurisdiction lands as a condition, not rhetoric.
Yes, if the symmetry is real. Reich companies in Mir and Mirrodin companies in Efolkia get equal basic terms, but neither side turns a branch into a political observation post.
Kelvin sets a mirrored pair of maps on the table. Reich nodes in Mir and Mirrodin nodes in Efolkia on the same baseline of terms.
We need a unified register of licenses, uniform compliance audit deadlines and transparent requirements for branch capital.
Livia pulls a draft unified license register on the side screen. Audit deadlines and branch capital must read without double meanings.
The pilot is 6 companies from each side, but the quarterly rule review is a right to stop, not a ritual report for the press.
Minister Mira marks a quarterly cycle and 6 slots per side on the calendar. The branch pilot gets a deadline, not endless talk.
In presence, the truth is simple. Either it is visible in procedure, or it is not there.
Minister Mira runs a palm over procedural checklists. For permanent presence, truth is either in procedure or absent altogether.
A branch is not a flag and not a quiet business consulate. It is daily proof that we respect another order, as long as that order is not used as a trap.
Kelvin clears a decorative standard from the table edge and leaves only a daily compliance log. The branch here is practice, not symbol.
When deviation becomes habit, let the audit arrive as due, without drama.
Minister Mira sets an automatic audit flag on the deviation scale. Habitual drift must not turn inspection into theater.
Otherwise, temporary stays a word forever instead of a deadline.
Kelvin strikes temporary without a date from the draft and writes a hard deadline, otherwise the word replaces the calendar.
And we tell the steps openly. The market fears not error, but its concealment.
Minister Mira opens a template for a public step map of the pilot. The market must see error, not guess at it. After the main part of the discussion, the hall noticeably empties. Only staffing matrices and rotation timelines remain on screen, and the conversation shifts from licensing to the harder task: how to ensure branches do not reproduce old distrust lines under a new name.
If branches become merely financial shells, they will quickly become new lines of mistrust.
Livia touches the schematic of hollow branches on the map's second layer. Without substance, they become new lines of mistrust, not a bridge.
We need personnel integration, mixed management teams, and a mandatory block of intercultural adaptation.
Minister Mira unfolds the personnel integration block. Mixed teams and mandatory intercultural adaptation enter the package alongside licenses.
Standard. The branch leadership contour is formed from both sides. No node holder monopoly.
Livia draws a dual leadership contour on the org chart. The node holder does not get a monopoly on branch management.
And we will add a conflict of interest check in each quarterly cycle.
Minister Mira adds a mandatory conflict of interest line to each quarterly cycle. Without it, mixed teams crack fast.
This will give the affiliates not only profits, but also lasting institutional credibility.
Livia records acceptance in the Economic Council minutes. Branches must yield not only profit but lasting institutional credibility. Pairing profit and trust in one sentence hooks Livia to a settlement node on the Reich Frontier Belt. There she first saw how a profitable corridor without a shared compliance window turned into double bookkeeping for one shipment. Reich Frontier Belt, Bankers Guild settlement node. 2 node holders argue over one lot, each has its own manifest.
Our figures reconcile inside our contour.
Inside your contour is not enough. You need a line the node holder can recheck without your independent translation.
Then we lose margin.
Then you lose the right to a branch's trust. Margin returns after a shared window, not before.
After the economic session, The conversation leaves the language of capital and staffing for the harder contour of legal guarantees. Responsibility schemes are rapidly added to working packets so branches do not become a gray zone between two legal orders. What sounded in the council hall like a strategy of presence now has to be converted in the interblock archive into legal mechanics that can survive not only growth, but first execution conflicts. Legal archive. On the table are two versions of the interblock branch statute.
A branch cannot live in a legal vacuum. The right of the receiving side applies on the receiving side's premises.
In the legal archive, Irma points to the receiving side law baseline on the jurisdiction map. A branch does not live in a vacuum on foreign ground.
But we need secure areas for strategic contracts and security inspections.
Isabel overlays secure zone contours on the same map. Strategic contracts and security inspections cannot go without guarded space.
Let's do this. Economic disputes. In a local court, strategic disputes, in joint arbitration with a parity panel.
Irma splits two dispute routes on the schematic, economic, to local court, strategic, to joint arbitration with a parity panel.
And without extraterritorial privileges. Otherwise, these will be enclaves, not branches.
Isabel removes extraterritorial privilege marks from the draft, otherwise the map keeps enclaves, not branches.
Law without visible accountability becomes decoration of power.
Irma opens a public accountability log beside the receiving side law text. Without visible reckoning, law becomes decoration of power.
Then we hold the bar on the shore, deadline, volume, drift, in one plane of observation.
Isabel brings up a single observation panel, deadline, volume, and drift on one plane, with nowhere to hide behind wording.
And let automatic audit be humility before the fact, not a whip for the occasion.
Irma configures automatic audit as fact-fixing, humility before the number, not a whip for the occasion.
That way we protect both capital and the face of those who execute.
Isabel adds an executor protection line to the observation panel. Capital and the face of those who work the contract are not split apart.
And we publish a dry chronicle of fixes. The deal's memory must be shareable. We need a separate protocol for the protection of personnel. Branches should not become an arena for political pressure.
Irma opens a template for a dry chronicle of fixes. The deal's memory must be shock crisis assessment, not one archive's monopoly. Irma places a separate personnel protection protocol on the table. Branches must not become an arena for political pressure.
Threats to employees are automatically transferred to the category of inter-unit incident.
Isabel enters a rule into the protocol. Any threat to an employee becomes an inter-unit incident at once, without waiting for silent escalation.
Every security force intervention goes in the General Register, with urgent arbitration on request from either side.
Irma opens the General Register of Security Force Interventions. Each entry carries the right to urgent arbitration on request from either side.
I support. Transparency on forceful actions is the only way to avoid slipping into hidden escalation.
Isabel lifts her finger off the Security Force Intervention line in the shared register. Transparency here is not a slogan but a fuse against escalation hiding under procedure's stamp.
Then the legal framework will protect not only contracts, but also the people who execute them.
Irma closes the two statute versions on the archive table. Between jurisdiction wording and the personnel protocol, the frame finally encloses people, not paper alone. As soon as jurisdictional rules and personnel protection protocols reach a coordinated shape, the center of gravity shifts into the engineering plane, where law must become working infrastructure rather than abstract formula. In the technical team, the same task is unpacked differently through interfaces, network segmentation, and failover regimes that must prove institutions can sustain real load without trust leakage. Technical headquarters. On the wall is a matrix: energy, cybersecurity, logistics.
Our production loops are not compatible out of the box. We need a common interface standard.
May traces the wall matrix in the tech hub. Energy, cyber, logistics collapse into one interface layer because out of the box no longer passes here.
And strict segmentation of networks. Commercial nodes separately, military nodes separately, void circuits are not accessible.
Lays slices the schematic into three color contours on flanked glass: commerce, military layer, and void stay behind separate gates, no convenient bridge.
Let's add a mirror field data rule. Both sides see the stability parameters, but do not see each other's private protocols.
Bloom brings paired stability bands to the shared display and dims closed protocols. The mirror shows pulse, not the other core's blueprint.
Then branches can be launched without leaking critical technologies.
May rims the branch node reassuring assessment on the matrix. Launch is allowed only where segmentation and field data already keep critical loops under seal.
Interfaces stay modest until you ask them for truth in numbers.
May strips decorative layers on the panel down to a dry numeric line. The interface does not persuade with speech, it answers only when asked in numbers.
I support. Technical hygiene starts with refusing roughly.
Lay strikes the approximate field on the terminal and pins a hard tolerance. Hygiene starts where roughly no longer passes into a partner report.
When noise crosses the threshold, the system itself demands a second look, without manual favor.
May raises the noise threshold on the wall, past the line an automatic second look request flares, and no operator can mute it by acquaintance.
That way we do not sell our partner the illusion of control.
Lays kills a false reassuring assessment on the schematic and leaves only verifiable nodes. The partner is not sold a lever that does not exist in the numbers.
And openly, what was reinforced, otherwise success is indistinguishable from complacency.
May opens the reinforcement log on shared glass. Without that line, any success on the hub wall is indistinguishable from complacency before failure. After baseline standards are aligned, the technical team switches to bad scenario mode. Only emergency branches and failure maps stay on the wall, because institutional resilience is tested not in nominal operation, but in how quickly control is recovered under compounded load.
The basic protocol is good until the first major failure. A backup mode with independent diagnostics is needed.
Bloom switches the wall to emergency branches, the standing protocol steps back, and reserve mode with independent diagnostics takes the fore.
We introduce duplication of critical nodes and distributed emergency control channels.
Lay stamps paired nodes in distributed emergency channels on the schematic. Control must not die in a single point of failure.
And a separate stability test once per cycle, simulating simultaneous failure of the network and power circuits.
Bloom runs a dual failure scenario on the wall. Network and power circuits drop together in the model, and the hub watches whether control returns without safety loss.
If a branch survives such a test without loss of security, the standard can be considered mature.
Lays logs a maturity mark for the cycle. The standard earns its name only after a test where a branch does not buy safety with a declaration.
Then, not optimism, but verifiable reliability will be built into the trust system.
Bloom folds the emergency branch back into the standing schematic. What enters the trust loop is not hope for luck but an audit mark you can recount. After the night standardization pass, both blocks move to the AX public node. Everything tested for months in negotiation, law, and technology must now be translated into a visible institutional fact legible to markets and vassal administrations alike. The synchronized launch ceremony is not a final gesture, but a structural integrity check in which every promised symmetry must appear in registries, gateways, and daily operational routine. Central Business District Worlds and Business Sector Efokia, live broadcast on 2 screens.
The first mirrored and industrial branch in Efokia is Register Crisis Assessment.
Titan watches the left broadcast screen, the Efokia registration line flares, and reciprocal presence stops being a draft on the map.
The first Reich navigation and logistics branch in the world is Regist Crisis Assessment.
Kelvin nods at the right screen. The Reich navigation and logistics contour in mirror gets a registry number, and the answering anchor stands opposite the imperial one.
Clearing circuits are synchronized. Payment gateways are open.
Livia aligns 2 clearing contours on her tablet. Reassuring assessment gateways on both screens mean money can move on the same symmetry as the signature.
The legal status of the branches came into force from this moment.
Irma stamps time on the legal sheet at the broadcast console. Status takes effect not after ceremony but from this minute on both shores.
Now harmony is measured not only by treaties, but also by how common institutions work every day.
Marzides keeps his eyes on both quarters in the broadcast frame. Harmony here is no longer concordat text but the daily work of shared institutions below.
The registry is open, so the promise is stitched to the clock. Outside deadlines only prayer remains.
Livia pushes the open registry to the shared screen with a timestamp. The promise is stitched to deadline, and past it only prayer remains without procedure.
Legal elegance is worthless without a shared thermometer of execution.
Irma touches the shared execution thermometer band on a side display. Elegant wording without performance in numbers stays decoration, not institution.
And a threshold. When the thermometer lies longer than allowed, procedure kicks in without haggling over faces.
Livia drags a threshold along the thermometer scale. Past tolerated falsehood, automatic procedure flares, and haggling over faces does not postpone the deadline.
Then the institution survives the first wave of fear.
Irma does not look away from the registry on screen. The institution is built not for launch applause but for the first wave of fear when numbers tremble.
And a short public note on tightening the rhythm, so the crowd does not learn history by rumor.
Livia drafts a short note on her tablet. The rhythm is tightened in registry words so the crowd below does not assemble history from alley rumor.